Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Michael Rossi, Chairman of the Clinton Planning and Zoning Commission. I would like to call this regular monthly meeting to order. I don't know if we have a clerk. Will Abby please call the roll?
I'm everything tonight, so I'll take the roll. Chinzi Lettieri. Thought I saw her coming in.
Here.
Yep. Eddie Alberito.
Here.
Dylan Walter.
Here.
Michael Rossi.
Here.
Larry Edwards.
Here.
Jay Mandel. I know he's on his way. Ellen Dahlgren. Mike Florio.
Here.
Bo Clark.
Here.
Susan Marcus.
Here.
Zach let me know that he could not be here, so Zach Florida is not coming. Ellen is on her way in right now. And Robert Corson.
Here.
Okay. So you're a full member now, correct?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so the seats we have open, we need to seat somebody for Zach. So next on the list is Sue for that. Who else do I need to seat somebody for? Ellen's here now.
I'm here. Yeah, I had a lot of trouble with Zoom. I'm sorry.
Yep, I don't see Jay Mandel here yet.
Okay. Is Larry here? Yes, Larry, your turn to be seated for the next one. Okay, so you're seated for Jay Mandel.
Okay.
And then, you know, like I said, I try to keep you guys all getting to have a turn. Chair's comments. I want to just thank everybody for everybody being here the night before the election. I'm sure you've got a lot of things going on. So I appreciate your taking the time to do this important work. Item 3, minutes. So we have to review and approve both the October 7th meeting minutes and the October 16th meeting minutes.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve both sets of minutes. I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Any errors found? Nope. Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
I'm abstaining. I was out of the country for both meetings.
I'm also
Okay.
abstaining. I was not at either meeting.
Okay, so 2 abstentions. Okay.
I would like to abstain too, because I wasn't present for either one of them.
Okay.
Not that I can vote,
So-
but sorry.
yeah. So we have, it's 5-3 in favor of approving. Okay.
Mike, sorry I'm late.
Oh, yep, Jay Mandel is here.
Okay, I'm sorry, Larry, that bumps you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, item 4, staff report. First one is the draft FY26 budget. This is going to be a document that Abby's going to show us. This is just for informational purposes only at this point because it is a draft document and they don't have full information yet, but she wanted to share this.
I just want to make sure that we are moving sort of in the right direction for folks. And so this is, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially what we're trying to do here is keep the budget the same or less that it was during this fiscal year. So this is the budget that would start July 1st of 2025 and run through June 30th of 2026. There's a little bit of a new format that the finance director and the new time manager have put together for town council, which is great. It's actually a much easier way for staff to put things together. So we're all really kind of excited to do it this way. But what I've got in front of you here is just a really quick salaries. You know, that is contractual information and it comes from the finance department. So I've highlighted that with the current budget. There will be adjustments up, and that's based on things that are you know, like I said, negotiated through the various unions and such. So that's a number that will be given to the commission. But the rest of it, I tried to kind of keep consistent or less than what we had in the past. Travel expenses, you know, usually if there's in-person conferences and that kind of stuff, this is where we would pull that information. Or sorry, that you know, gas cost or anything else if we have to go anywhere. Much of what we try to do is virtual, so we try to not travel when we can, but that's where that comes from. We haven't spent any of that this year. This is the actual, this is actual up to 12/31. It's actually as of today, what we've spent so far. So we haven't spent anything in travel or training yet. Some of that training comes a little bit later. Some of it may not get spent this year or may get diverted to other training opportunities. Things like the SNEPA, the Southern New England Planning Conference, or things like that we would normally send a person to. We're down people this year, so we're not going to have those staff absences or attend those conferences. So we'll find time to make sure we all get our credits. Professional technical services. This is primarily our GIS contract that drives all of the online GIS features, parcel updates, all of the various things that DPW needs in terms of updating roads data, catch basins, all of those types of things, maintenance of the zoning map if there are any changes. So this is sort of the powerhouse of where that budget comes from for our consulting GIS services. Other professional services is a number that had been going to consulting planning services, and now we just keep a modest amount in case the commission needs particular consulting fees outside of other projects. So we just keep a number there. Postage is all of our correspondence that goes back and forth. We've had fewer applications to date this year, so that number is a little bit lower. Our expenditures are a little bit lower than they were last year, and we'll see how we stay on track with that. General supplies, this is our office supply stuff. We, you know, we're trying to be pretty frugal in the office, so we keep it as low as we can and only order what we need in terms of pens and pads and all that kind of stuff. Other items is where we put our bigger ticket items. Some of the, like, so for last year, or for this fiscal year, we have, things like buying an iPad to help with field inspections to link us into our permitting software so we don't have to come back to the office and upload pictures and spend a lot of time duplicating work. So anything that makes us more efficient goes here. This number right here is being held in case we have a couple of older laptops for our clerk positions. And since we have those hybrid meetings, we need them to be able to come in and run the meetings, you know, when we do have them in the green room. So that if any of those go down, well, right now I'm holding a number for it. I'll be consulting with our IT director and seeing if he is going to put that in his budget or if we keep it here. So this is just, like I said, this is ultimately we want the commission to endorse, understand, feel comfortable with the budget as it gets presented to the town manager. Then Michelle will take it, you know, weigh all of the various budget department requests and present a budget to the town council. And so that's our next step. But right now, this is your opportunity to ask any questions or comment.
Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments they'd like to make at this time?
Nope. No.
No, sir. Nope.
No,
I have no issue today.
Thank you for sharing it.
No problem.
Okay, the next thing you had for us was the draft 25 calendar. I didn't see that go out. Maybe it went out after I turned off my computer this afternoon.
Yeah.
A whole list went out tonight, Mike. A whole list.
It did. It went out late. It went out a little bit late, and I apologize for that. What I will do is, let me share that real quick with you. Oops. No, that's the wrong one to share. Too many screens.
I think you had it up. That was it.
That was it.
Oh, you had it?
That was
Okay.
it.
Wasn't showing on mine. All right, let me share that again. Okay. So what's here is essentially we scanned for our second Mondays. If there's anything that conflicts with the holiday, we tried to make sure that we moved it to the either one earlier or one later and tried to balance out when we were going. I don't think anything conflicts with like high holidays or any of that kind of stuff. So if anybody has any questions about dates, let me know. Otherwise, this is the list that we would you know vote on and take to the town clerks, you know, before it's time for us to report in December.
So the aquifer meetings once every 3 months?
Yeah, they're quarterly.
Quarterly. I didn't know that. Okay, that makes sense.
And Abby, the
No.
aquifer meetings just start a little early like they have been?
Correct. They start at 6:45. We haven't had any applications particular to the Aquifer Protection Agency. I would like, perhaps for the January meeting, to do a little bit of we've got some newer members and folks who haven't, sort of done a lot with aquifers so far. So it might be nice to do a little bit of education and just to kind of reintroduce the purpose and sort of authority of the agency and what would require applications and that kind of stuff. So we can do some training at the January meeting if folks are amenable.
That sounds
I
like a
think,
good.
it's been a long time since I've had that training, so I certainly would benefit.
We can do that.
Yeah, and if it's possible, I can get on the email list too, Abby. That'd be great.
Yes, you should have been added, so I will make sure I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. Thank you.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions about the calendar or concerns about dates?
Good.
Okay. So we'll go with
Okay,
those.
and then you have a draft annual report.
Yes. Okay, so the annual report, basically we kept the format the same for folks who have not seen this before. It's been a fairly standard thing for a few years. Certainly since I've been here, it's been kind of a similar format. I ran the numbers today and just checked to make sure that this is the period that runs July 1 of 23 through June 30th of 24. So we're a little bit outside of that period now. It was a good walk down memory lane to go through all of our old applications and add them up. But these are our numbers, and there's certainly a lot that runs through our office in the course of a year for a fairly small department. So the folks here who come every day and do this work, we're really lucky to have the people that work with me. I think we have a really great team. So some of these things we were kind of high on amendments to zoning regulations. That's a lot of those section 28 things that we took in 3 pieces and those things that added up. We have a lot of complaints, so things are running through the office whenever somebody is seeing something they think isn't quite right out there. Signage was a big sort of topic.
Right.
And then you'll see this really big number for zoning reviews of substantial improvement. That is our office doing all of the reviews that come through related to floodplain improvements for structures in floodplains, and making sure that we are FEMA compliant in those reviews. And so there are thresholds, as I know folks are well aware, that if people do over a certain amount of work on their properties, they have to be compliant with FEMA construction standards. And this is our way of making sure that we don't miss any. So essentially every building permit that comes through in the floodplain has to get one of these reviews. And because we have section 17 in the zoning regulations, they come to us. So that's part of the joy. So there you go. But I don't know if folks have any particular questions or thoughts on this structure of the report, content, any of that kind of stuff.
Abby, can I ask a question just because I'm new here? Is this similar to what it's been in the past years, or have you seen an uptick in like the substantial improvement area?
It's actually a little bit lower. So what I'm seeing is that the numbers of applications seem to be coming down, but the complexity of the applications is more. So, things that may require, zoning, text amendments prior to doing map changes, prior to doing actual development. There's sort of multi-stage applications. And in terms of substantial improvement, I think we were around 380 last year. For the previous fiscal year. And it really just depends on where folks are spending their money and how many new projects are coming through. I think we're up a little bit higher on coastal site plans this year. Like I said, higher on zoning amendment, those kinds of things. We're a little fewer special exceptions. We're seeing an uptick in special exceptions now. So, it just kind of goes in waves.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, I gotta get my agenda back. There we go. Okay. That moves us to item 5, which is new business. And we have our first item is Planning and Zoning Commission 24-19, which is 151 and 153 East Main Street. It's a special exception modification to change Building 3 located at 153 East Main Street from 1 residential unit to 2 residential units. Applicant is Thomas A. Stevens Associates. We need to receive this and possibly schedule it for a public hearing. And I say possibly because we had denied this application or a somewhat similar application within the last 6 months So in order for us to consider it, we do have to receive it, but for us to consider it, we have to indicate if it's substantially different since it was denied. Okay,
I'd like
because
to
it was
make a
not
motion to that effect.
Excuse me?
I'm prepared to make a motion to that effect.
Okay,
So I move to receive the application PZC 24-19 to schedule it for public hearing on December 9th, 2024, and find that this application differs from the application PZC 24-14 as follows. The application eliminates the previous request to convert a commercial uses to residential.
okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Got a bunch of them there. You can pick, Abby.
All right, I'm going with Mike
Um,
Florio because I've already got Eddie on another one. So there we go.
Okay,
All right.
okay. So, let's see, this one we need to schedule for a public hearing. So I am not going to ask the applicant to say anything about it now unless they feel they absolutely must. So, is there any objection to that?
No.
No.
When's that? When you want to schedule for December what?
December 9th.
Is
Thanks,
there-
Bo.
Okay. Okay, so do we have any discussion on this before I ask for a vote on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of
Aye.
receiving and scheduling for public hearing, please say
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay, it passes. Thank you very much. Okay. Our next item is the Plan of Conservation and Development kickoff. Before we get started with Dylan had told me that he wanted to make a statement. I'm going to allow that prior to us getting started. So Dylan, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Rossi. To my fellow members of the Planning and Zoning Commission and to the consulting firm assisting us in crafting our new plan of conservation and development. As we move forward with this important project, I feel compelled to share my perspective and concerns. During the selection process, we saw presentations from two firms, each with a different approach. Notably, one firm's focus on stakeholders dominated their presentation, mentioning the term over 20 times, while the other firm used it just twice. These stakeholders encompass government institutions, private companies, civil society organizations like colleges and universities, as well as non-government organizations and media. While collaboration can certainly bring value, it's also important that we as a town do not lose sight of the principles that matter most to our community. I believe our decisions should be guided by the needs and aspirations of Clinton's residents, not by distant entities that may not fully understand our unique challenges or opportunities. This is why I stood alone in advocating for the other firm, a firm that demonstrated a commitment to serve us, the people of Clinton, rather than catering to mandates that may not align with our town's vision. I assure you that I will closely monitor every decision, proposal, and policy to ensure it genuinely serves the best interests of our community and future generations. If I sense any bias towards agendas that prioritize external stakeholders over our residents, I will challenge those actions. We must ensure that Clinton's development aligns with the values and preferences of those who live here, not the expectations of outside groups or sweeping state initiatives. I intend to be vigilant in defending Clinton's autonomy and our community's vision. I'm particularly wary of policies like desegregate CT, which could risk our funding if we don't meet state mandated affordable housing targets near public transit. We must ask ourselves, oops, lost my spot. All right, we should ask ourselves, should our development mirror a homogenized vision from Hartford, or should it reflect the local identity, values, and needs of our residents? With 41 years in Clinton and a deep family legacy here, I've witnessed firsthand what makes our town special. Decisions about our future should come from people who know this community, not individuals who have only spent a couple of hours here and who, despite their good intentions, may not understand our needs as well as those who call Clinton home. Our voices, shaped by years of living, working, and raising families here, carry a weight that should not be overshadowed by those who see our town from afar. I'm proud to follow in the footsteps of family members like my grandfather, Leonard Walter, and my great aunt, Helen Laird, whose names are on the monument outside our town hall. reminders of those who fought for our freedoms and way of life. I will honor their legacy by advocating for Clinton's sovereignty, always putting our residents first. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Dale.
will point out that, you know, the document that's going to be produced will be our document as a commission, not theirs. We are responsible for the content. Okay, the consultants are here to interview people in the town and make sure that they reflect what is the town's opinion. You know, given that we have a very diverse community here in Clinton, I'm sure that they're going to get a very diverse group set of opinions about what should and should not be in the plan of conservation and development. But keep in mind, we're the ones that will approve it. It'll be our document. So when I hear stakeholders, I'm hearing the people of Clinton. And that is the stakeholders that we do need to always, as this commission, favor and promote. Okay, with that, I would like to ask our consultants to identify themselves for the record and go ahead and give us their presentation for this evening.
Certainly, thank you. This is Dave Murphy from Resilient Land and Water. Victoria?
Yep, Victoria Vitri from Resilient Land and Water.
And Mike.
Mike Zuba from MP Planning.
Okay, and thank you, Mr. Walter. Those comments actually were right in line with what we're about to talk about. So I hope that you see some of what you're asking for in this presentation. Abby, I think you already gave me hosting abilities. You did. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to just jump right in. And then, Mr. Chairman, would you let me know, is it your preference to hear all the slides and then have questions at the end, or do you want folks to jump in? Just let us know your preference.
I would prefer to hear your presentation, and then I can you know, organize the responses and questions. Okay, so yep. I would ask people to take notes if you have questions. Make sure that you don't forget them.
Okay, makes sense. Thanks. Assume you can all see the screen all right. So
Yes,
great, thank you. All right, so we're quite happy to have been selected. Victoria and I work for a firm called Resilient Land and Water. We are a small business in Connecticut, and we're a relatively new firm, about 3 years old. As you can see by my hair color, I've been in the industry for a while, and we're proud to be teaming with MP Planning. Mike is on the phone with us, and then RKG Associates will be on board for a little bit of help with economic development concerns. And one thing that I'm happy to report is that Victoria lives in Clinton. She's a proud Clinton resident. I think she goes to bingo sometimes. And Mike is nearby in Madison. And I'm really not that far. I'm in West Hartford. It's a small state, so we're all pretty local. So we've got a quick agenda. We've got about 20 slides, and I think the point of this presentation isn't to present everything. We're going to get there, right? But we're going to have a meeting with the subcommittee that's formed later on this week, and there'll be kind of a longer version of these slides for that group after it's determined who will be participating. So we'll go through just quickly the planning process, the schedule, how the POCD is currently organized. We'll talk about some choices for organization for the update. We'll go through some engagement approaches and ideas. We'll talk about the engagement plan. And we're going to touch on the word stakeholders, so stay tuned for that in a few minutes. And we're going to just tell you what kind of early guidance and decisions we're going to need, and then we'll leave you with sort of a discussion of next steps. So some of you have probably been involved in the past with the Plan of Conservation Development. If you haven't been, this will be perhaps new to you. So there's really 4 phases that we talk about in the planning process. So we begin the process, we sort of outline the scope, set the meetings, set expectations, and kind of chart the course. We go through the different plan topics and elements. It's called the discovery phase, and there'll be materials that are prepared that you'll all be reacting to and adding to. We put the pieces together to develop the plan, and then it's reviewed, refined, and ultimately adopted about a year from now. Here's a quick slide of the schedule. And there's kind of a more detailed version in the proposal that some of you may have seen. We've got about a year, which is a good time frame. I always say for planning processes, if you have less than a year, you're kind of rushing. If you have more than a year, you kind of lose momentum. So this is really very ideal. I'm hoping that many of you feel that it's ideal as well. Those 4 tasks on the left-hand side. So administration and meetings such as this one will occur throughout. So every month we'll have a touch point. In the discovery phase and analysis, where we're providing sections of the plan for everyone to react to and to add to, that'll really happen from this fall through the spring. Engagement will occur throughout, and we'll talk about how we do that in a few minutes and what kind of events we want to focus on. And then the plan development process, the document itself will be something that you'll start to see come together in the spring. There's a little padlock there, which shows when the plan is locked for public comment. And then 2 months later, it would be adopted. At the bottom row there with the green shading is showing what the committee that has not yet been formed, but the things that they'll have to do along the way to participate and sort of guide us. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we step through the slides. This slide is great if you like to see calendars. If you don't like calendars and you prefer words and numbers, here's kind of just a different version of it. There's a lot on this slide. Again, we'll be coming back to the committee in a couple of days with this so we can look at it in more detail. But the important point here is that the plan will expire November of next year, so about 12 months from now. And we have to be mindful of the 65 and 35 day windows to provide different kinds of notifications and receive comments. And the reminder on the bottom right here is that the committee members, which may be some of you or many of you, will have some homework throughout, and we'll have to focus on making sure that we get you material ahead of time so you can do that homework. Wanted to take a couple minutes to just go through, again, I know you're familiar with the current plan of conservation development, but just go through how it's organized because it does have a bearing on one of the early decisions that we'll have to make in a couple days when we meet again. So the current plan is organized. It's a little bit topic-based. We'll talk about what that means here in a moment. Economic development was the earlier part of the plan focuses on economic development. And I think that's great. And the approach that was used to focus on specific areas is unique in Connecticut. Not everyone does that. And I think it really was, it kind of shows you what was important 10 years ago. And then after that, the plan focuses on all the things that are required by statute. So housing, conservation, infrastructure, community facilities, cultural resources, that sort of thing. So hopefully, again, this table of contents is not a surprise to you. You've seen it before, I'm sure. There's an introduction section in the vision. I think it's great that there's a vision. We will, again, want to lead with a vision statement, and we'll get into what the vision should be as we step through the process and work with all of you. Wanted to just take a quick look at some of those economic development focus areas and how they're structured. So there were 7, which are sort of in different shades, different colors on the left-hand side. It's just a view from the current plan. And then each one of those areas was kind of treated through a consistent approach where there were expectations that were outlined and people who could make things happen in those areas. So it was a consistent discussion from area to area in the plan 10 years ago. That said, the plan does end with an implementation matrix that covers many more topics than economic development. In total, there are almost 200 actions, which is kind of a lot. It's a little bit unwieldy, and it probably has made it a little bit challenging to sometimes figure out what to do next. But I think one thing that was great about the implementation matrix is that it links to the different chapters and priorities and sort of a time frame in there. So if a person had the stamina to sort of pick it up and start to weed through it, you would see who should be doing what and when that should be happening if resources allow that. So the current plan is something that we call topic-based. And I think it's important to sort of look at other choices that have been available in Connecticut. So the state statute says what must be in a plan of conservation and development. It doesn't say how you have to write it up. It doesn't say how it needs to look. Some communities want the 50-page plan, and some communities, we just finished working with Stratford, wanted hundreds of pages, which I would not recommend, but it's a choice, right? So we could continue with a topic-based plan, or we could move to sort of a theme-based plan, which would probably support a different kind of structure, and it would allow us to weave different topics through the themes. And we'll look at what that could look like in a moment. And then a traditional plan, you've probably seen a few of those out there. A lot of times when the COGs write the plans of conservation development, it's more of a traditional approach with conservation development and then kind of the wrap up. Regardless of which structure we choose, we're going to make sure we incorporate sustainability and resiliency throughout. And that's not a negative thing, right? Those are things that that can be baked into all of our actions. If there's a chapter on, for example, schools, we want to make sure that they are places that people can use as a resource when needed. And perhaps it's a critical facility and it needs to be made resilient, or the infrastructure that you have in the ground. These are all things that I think we can sort of get behind. Here's a couple examples of kind of theme-based plans. The left-hand side is the Stratford Plan of Conservation Development, and you can see it's organized around these 5 themes: community, opportunity, partnerships, balance, and resiliency. And then on the right-hand side, a neighbor of Stratford's, Fairfield, recently finished their plan, and they kind of have a theme-based approach as well, but it's also a little bit topic-based if you look at the table of contents there. And it's great that we're seeing all these choices emerge in POCDs. So one thing that that we spoke about in our interview a couple months ago is we could consider, in the new edition of the Plan of Conservation Development, taking the chapters and sort of crafting them into active statements. I think active statements are great because they help us, they sort of help inspire implementation. If the chapter is a sentence, then it's kind of implying to all of us what we should do. So we've got some examples on the right-hand side of chapter names that we could use. And I think as you read them, hopefully you're not seeing any sort of outside influence. What these chapters really would do is place control in the hands of the town. And I think, that's kind of the really important point. And Mr. Walter, I think you actually used the word autonomy. And so I'm pleased that it's in the slides. We didn't sort of just rush it in there after your comments. It was sort of what we were thinking all along. So the committee that you all form will help us set priorities, and it's going to be the town's plan. It's your plan. It's Victoria's plan. She lives there on Heritage Circle. I can't remember the name of your road. So it's going to embrace that autonomy. But I think what's also really important is that as finances are limited for all of us, and a lot of communities want to look towards others for assistance or for advice or for resources. We want to leverage those resources. We don't want them to say what we should do, but we want you to say how we should access those if we need to. So that'll be a really important theme as we go forward. And with that, I think I'm going to take a break, let Victoria do some talking, and I've got the slides shared, Victoria, so let me know when to advance.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about engagement and then kind of talk about some of these early on decisions that we've already been working on that the committee will need to make. So some of the things, to kind of hit the ground running here. So it's not necessarily decisions that are made tonight, but they'll have to all be made very soon with the steering committee. So first thing, we've got a couple of slides on engagement. So our community engagement approach is pretty standard across, all planning activities, right? We're going to have all these different types of events. But there's a few kind of key elements that we want to point out. One is, using this mixed method approach. We know that community members, residents, I'll say the word stakeholders, right? Because stakeholders do encompass everybody that, works, lives, whether they play in Clinton, a seasonal resident, a year-round resident, whoever they are, they get their information and they get their news from different ways. So we want to make sure we're using that mixed method to, to really encourage a mix of participation in a variety of different communities and demographics throughout the town. The other key point that we like to point out, and I believe Mr. Rossi already pointed out, is we're really here to facilitate the conversation. So, you know, what we're reaching out to folks for, whether it's a survey or at a pop-up event, or if it's in an interview, you know, we want to make sure that our questions and our points of topic of conversation are in line with, you know, what the committee want and what the town, what is important to the town. So we're here to facilitate the conversation, you know, not create it or create the narrative. Building consensus above among all, you know, community members, right? So everybody has different agendas, different goals, different priorities, whatever that may be, but really working to build that community consensus so everybody understands that this isn't a plan meant to attack anybody. It's really a plan meant to, you know, build up Clinton over the next 10 years and focus on what's important to everybody. And then we like to try to leverage local ambassadors. That works in some communities better than others, but it's something we can explore with the committee. So those are kind of the 4 key points that we like to drive home with our community engagement approach, and we kind of intertwine it. You could see through these kind of 9 key activities, whether it's the workshops, pop-up events, you know, surveys, the website, and things like that, which I'll talk about a little bit more in just a second. So next slide, Dave, please. So before we even do any engagement, we do put together an engagement plan. So this is something that the committee will get to review. So, you know, I don't know if folks have ever seen or worked with an engagement plan before, but just some key points to let you know, what is it for, right? So we lay out all of the engagement. We really put down into words what our approach is, what I just described. But it also helps everybody get on the same page about identifying, what different groups need to be discussed or communicated with, what our goals are for the outreach and the engagement, identifying opportunities for outreach and engagement, whether that's community events or, the survey. We've mentioned the seasonal residents here, that's a concern. A lot of this planning will be occurring during the winter. We've got residents, who won't be in town, making sure we get them involved. So really making sure everybody, the consultant, the committee is on the same team. And that's also kind of how it will be used, right? So guiding us, guiding the committee, making sure we're within certain time frames, hitting certain milestones, leveraging those activities that we've identified from the beginning, right? Right from the get-go, we've all agreed, this is what will work for Clinton. Let's stick to this plan. That's basically what we want to do. And then the type of information, again, identifying town staff, department heads, commission members, maybe businesses, certain community members who might be ambassadors. So all of this type of information will go into this plan so that we can best leverage those people, those events, these happenings to get as much input as we can. So this engagement plan it's a short and sweet plan, but it really drives the engagement to make sure that we're reaching out and contacting as many community members as we can, right? I mean, we try to do as much as we can with public outreach. It doesn't always work, so we have to be a little bit flexible. But from the get-go, we want to make sure we've got a solid plan in place. Next slide, please. So to dive into a little bit of kind of some of the early decisions and some things that we've already been working on to present to the committee. So we've got 3 key things going on right now. We've got the survey, we've got a mapping tool, and we've got a story map, which is just a project website. So the survey is something we've been crafting behind the scenes, that will work with the committee to finalize the length, the sequence, make sure we're providing questions for community members that are capturing what we want to prioritize in the plan, right? What you all want to prioritize in the plan. The mapping tool, so this is something where folks, those who work a little bit better, more spatially, or, easier to kind of drop something on a map where they can see a point of interest or an area that's a challenge, something like that. So we've been working on a mapping tool where folks can leave feedback that way. And then the story map will be a very short and succinct website that provides some information on what a plan of conservation and development is. It'll house the survey, the mapping tool, and it'll kind of be a landing page for the project. So, updates on, when a pop-up event is occurring or when a workshop is occurring, things like that. So those are some things that we'll be working with the committee on very soon to finalize, review, and whatnot. And then we've already been thinking about some pop-up event opportunities in November and December. Whether or not, we'll be able to leverage these events obviously depends on, how much we can get done by way of survey and whatnot. But, if we can, there'll be a lot going on in town. So we just have a few things here that could be a good opportunity for whether it's passive or, kind of passive. So posters and information just for residents, or more active. So having a member of, the committee or the consultant team at one of these events to discuss about the plan. So again, some things that we'll be talking about with the committee. Dave, go ahead one more, please. Another thing is branding. So a lot of towns, choose to kind of brand the project. It's a year-long planning project. They want to make sure residents are familiar with it. So we've been putting together some color palettes, like you can see here. We kind of have a more robust one. We have more of a nature themed one. We do have some of the traditional Clinton blues. So some different shades, these are something that, again, we'll talk with the committee, whatever feels right to the committee. This isn't, yes, I did pick the colors, but, this is all open for discussion. So these are some things that we're trying to get before the committee sooner than later, so we can really create the entire project and have it be streamlined so folks can recognize the colors. And then Dave, if you want to jump ahead, we've put together a few different brands that we can, mix and match kind of these logos. We can also mix them all, keep them simple, whatever works for the committee. This is something, and Dave, if you want to jump through like the next one or two.
Yeah.
Because there's just a bunch of pictures on a few slides. So this is something that, we'll tweak, but it's definitely something that we'll want to get, finalized as soon as we can, just because it will be a part of the website. It will be a part of the story map. It'll be part of, all of those flyers and any sort of, press releases or social media, things like that. We want to keep it consistent. So this is definitely something that we'll want to decide early on. One more for me, Dave.
Yep.
Thank you. So again, this is something we'll be working with the committee on, the words, the phrases, kind of that catchphrase. We can mix and match. We can choose different colors. Again, these are ideas, but what we want to make whatever works, best for the town. So these are some branding decisions that we'll be working on within the next few weeks. And then, so I keep talking about these early decisions and these discussions. So like I said, we're kind of hitting the ground running here. So we internally have already been talking about, creating and developing a much more specific schedule, right? So we have this schedule that Dave presented a few slides ago, but really we have to keep this project on track, right? We have a hard deadline within a year, so we have to make sure that we're kind of hitting these milestones. So just to give you an idea of kind of the tentative timeline for the next few committee meetings. So a discussion on a lot of these things that we've just brought up: engagement plan, branding, survey, mapping tool, pop-up events, things like that. So this is all going to be the discussion a little bit deeper this week, November 7th. And then hoping to finalize a majority, if not all of this by the December meeting. So that way we can start to launch the survey. We can get the mapping tool out. We can get the story map website up. And then if possible, we can try to attend some of these pop-up events, or at least have, maybe a board up so folks can see that this POCD is kicking off. There's maybe nothing for me to do now, but let me be aware of it for the next year. And then in January, again, pushing forward with discussions, reviewing questions that we'll be having with the interviewees for department heads and commissions, discussing upcoming workshops, earlier on in the year, things like that. So just so you can get an idea that, once we get this ball rolling, we're going to keep going till November. And so this is something that we're going to be putting together, like I said, a more specific timeline. I think, right, one more. So the next step, so we wanted to present, all this information for the commission so you can see kind of what this process will be, but also what's, kind of coming down the pipeline for those that will be part of the committee, and then just for the commission's general awareness. So the next steps specifically for the committee will really be a lot of review and improvement. review and approval. So whether that's the engagement plan that we'll be sharing, discussing ideas for other pop-ups, holiday season, and even into early next year, discussing and deciding on the branding so we can really pull all of the engagement pieces together and have them be streamlined. Thinking about those town priorities and document organization. So that's not something we have to have final by the end of the year, but it's definitely something that, we want to start the discussion now so that we can slowly develop that organization. And then again, we'll review a more detailed schedule later this week so that we us and the committee and everybody understands, the full commitment going forward. So that, I believe, is all we have for this evening. And I believe we can open the floor for questions if that works for everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will open it to questions, but I do want to just say, what I find most exciting about this is your engagement plan. I think it is truly the most important thing that you're going to be doing for us is reaching out to the entire town. And so as much as you can do that, I think is going to make a big difference. And I really find that to be very important. And it's actually, having been through many of these, been a weakness in our past that we haven't had as strong an engagement plan as what you're suggesting. So I really like that, and I want to thank you. Now, I would like to give members of the commission time to ask questions. If anyone wants to ask a question, just let me know.
I have three, real quick.
Go ahead, Lord.
And as an alternate in the planning and zoning, Mr. Commissioner or Mr. Chairman, I had if this is going to be put up for the whole town to see, I would like to know, three things. This funding, is this being funded through the bipartisan infrastructure bill?
No, the funding for this is through town capital funds.
Which comes from where?
Us.
It's part of the general budget every year. So we broke it up into 2 fiscal years and it is funded directly by the taxpayers.
Okay. And I would like to, publicly endorse Dylan's letter that he wrote. And I would like to know why that would be not put up for the public town to view, as stated earlier.
Who said it wouldn't be put up for review?
Well, you said it would just be kept in the planning and zoning archives, not for anyone else to see, basically. His letter.
I didn't do anything like that. But it's part of our public record. So it is already part of this.
Yeah, we'll need to get Dylan to email that over to me so I can make sure it appears sort of word for word in the minutes and we can make sure it's there, but it will be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, I thought it was something to do with the River Cog, the community. I thought it was the same thing as going in from there, so I kind of misunderstood. All right, thank you very much.
I thought you had another question.
Well, that just solidified the third question. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah. So Victoria, do you know how many people we're targeting to get responses back from through these surveys, pop-ups, through the outreach? Is there a certain amount of the population that would kind of, satisfy our, to get the whole picture of what to get as many diverse voices as possible in town, incorporate it in this plan?
Yeah, so that's I think one of the number one questions we always get regarding engagement. And I can't give you a certain percentage. I don't know if Dave or Mike has something. I mean, because we've participated in projects where town, community members are very active in sharing, surveys, tools, participating, and we've gotten hundreds of responses, whether it's through a survey, interactions at a pop-up and things like that, and then other efforts where it's unfortunately just it hasn't been a top priority for the community. So I think we have some ideas to really try to capture a variety of, a variety of community members. We did present those a little bit during the meeting, or excuse me, during our interview. And then, we do have those in the engagement plan. So really trying to, whether it's seniors, the more vulnerable population, folks who just, they don't get their news and their information kind of through Facebook or things like that, right? So we have to try to be creative. So I don't have a great number for you, but I think trying to, again, use that kind of multimedia approach will help diversify the responses and increase the number. And I also think if we can really frame this as a top priority for all community members from the beginning. So like I said, even if, the pop-up in December has no, interactive component at all, it's just a simple flyer to let folks know that, hey, this is happening. And in the next, this is a plan that's going to shape Clinton for the next 10 years. And you live here, you work here, whatever you do here, this involves you. So I think if we can frame it right from the beginning as a top priority for community members, they'll pay attention a little bit more than they might for, maybe like a watershed plan or something like that, right? They don't see how that directly impacts them, but so I don't have a number, but
Mike, do you have a number?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's a question I hear a lot. I think,
Yeah.
We're asking people to self-select by giving them a range and different types of events and opportunities. It's not like a random telephone survey where, you're randomly sampling people who aren't self-selecting and, you have a certain number, I think it's 200, and you now have a statistically valid survey. This isn't like that. We're trying to create awareness and get input through different means, I think, and I think that's the key, is using just different vehicles, whether it's a pop-up, certain people gravitate towards that, other people gravitate towards an online survey. Some folks still, gravitate towards the workshop where you can kind of float around a room and talk to the consultants, talk to staff, put some stickers on the board, learn more that way in a more traditional town hall workshop format. So I think, what we're trying to do is have a menu of different options that are going to work across the community in order to get that broader cross section. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's, us doing our best job to promote it. It's making it accessible and available. And then people having to take interest in the process and coming out and, basically volunteering to give information and give input on it. So, that's not something that we could put a number on, but obviously we'd like to have, as many people as we can have possible and get as many different viewpoints as we can as possible in order to be able to take that information and distill it down into the plan.
You guys are shy, so I would say a couple hundred. That would have been my answer.
I think too, one of the things that I think is really important is the people of Clinton chose you all to be on this commission and represent them in the best interest of the community. There's a level of trust and a level of connection that you all have. And some of the best responses that I've seen in community outreach comes when commission members or people trust shoot them a text and say, look, this just opened up. I'm sending it to you. Can you send it to 5 more people? And it's that word of mouth and that personal nature of how we reach out that can sometimes be the sort of key to just getting the same old people responding to or reaching folks who might not otherwise participate. People want to know that they're needed. And I think that you all are uniquely poised to be able to help that message get out there.
I have a question.
I don't think 200 or so is enough. I'm hoping for a much more robust outreach than that.
I agree with Mike.
Yeah,
Us too. We are.
Yeah. So
Mike, can I interject for a
if
second?
we can hit 1,000, I'd start to feel comfortable. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a number that I know make it work for it. Mike, you had a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Ab, you said that the town pays for this. How much is this costing the taxpayers?
$70,000, and that's a pretty reasonable number compared. These are not small undertakings. There's a lot of data, a lot of state compliance issues, and some of this engagement and just being available to attend the pop-ups and pay for people's time, it's not a small effort. So it's certainly something that, you know, I think we're getting a pretty good deal.
And what is the purpose of all of this? Like all of this, what is the purpose of it? What are we
It's
gonna make?
state mandated, Mike. It's state mandated that every municipality have this updated every 10 years. And it's the basis of some of our decisions. If you look at any of the decisions we make with zone changes or even different applications, we have to make a statement whether it's consistent with the plan of conservation and development or not. So it's kind of the cornerstone to look at. I mean, if you had a development that was, say, grossly inconsistent with the plan of conservation and development, that's a reason to deny it. If it's something that's very compliant with the plan. So it's a guideline really for the town for the next 10 years.
But it's something we have to do.
It is something we have to do. It's mandated by state statute.
And that's why there's a hard deadline on it, is that our last 10-year one runs out next November.
Okay, all right.
So that's why we've got to, but again, we've got to have something that we as a commission support, okay, at the end. And that we have, you know, we'll have to go through public hearings with it, so the town's going to have to support it. Which means it'll probably go through you know, there will be revisions. Hopefully, you know, they do have to have what we lock in, but we want to have that have been vetted before the lock-in time, because again, we have a hard deadline. So that's why it's so important what Jinty asked is, you know, how many people are we going to get? How much are, you know, it's important for us that we have a really well discussed plan that all of us can have consensus behind, even if we don't agree with every point in it. Okay, but we have to have something that we think reflects the town and what's important for the town.
You know,
Okay. And that goes back to what Dylan said. You know, the first thing that he mentioned, his first priority is to support the people in the town, and I agree with that 100%. Ellen.
Yeah, I want to make the point that it should be the basis for our writing of the zoning regulations. I mean, they sit on top of the POCD.
Yeah.
And Mike, if I could interject again, I would agree with Abby that the $79,000 is a very reasonable rate. I went through this with the town of Orange. Had to be 8 or 9 years ago, and we were well above 79,000.
Okay.
I have a question.
Susan.
So the summer residents, I don't know what percentage of the town is summer residents, and I know that we have that lockdown date. Would it be possible still to have, in addition to this mixed approach, which sounds, I think, like a very good idea, to have some kind of events for the summer people? Will it be too late in, let's say, June or July?
I think we plan to. It won't be too late. It'll be too late for early input, but it will not be too late at all to have input to the plan itself. So that's our plan, is to come back in the summer when they're around, and we'll have some time before that September timeframe.
I saw somebody.
Okay.
I saw somebody uploads of 2015. Didn't realize that's what it was about. That was 10 years ago, you know. So it's sort of, that's what was confusing in the beginning, was like, why, you know, why was this from there, you know? But that brought up my questions about the bipartisan deal, you know, but I didn't know. So that says a lot, but it's understandable that it's sort of like a census for the town every 10 years.
And may I interject, Larry, don't forget all those people that live on Shore Road, and most of them are some of the residents.
Only some.
Yeah, most of them. And they're on the mailing list, they're on the taxes, so we'll get letters out to them. I mean, David has a way to send all those people letters, you know, because those are stakeholders. Those are stakeholders in the town.
Well, that was,
we're not going to leave them out. We're not going to leave them out. And don't forget what Michael made a good point, that we write this, you know, we take their ideas and incorporate it into our language. So
exactly.
Thank you.
We have had some conversations as well with Abby already about trying to leverage a few kind of those local ambassadors to help us get survey information and things like that to residents that may be out of town. So we're definitely trying to look at all avenues for contacting those folks, just to let you know.
Other questions?
Just one thing to kind of keep on your radar, is that we should definitely, I was writing down like all the avenues that we're looking for outreach, that our public library should definitely be a resource for folks in town. If we don't have that on the list, I think it definitely should be added, just because so many folks in the area don't have access to the internet, or you know, or very limited access. And so I know that a lot of people use the library as a resource to find their information and news on what's going on in town.
Great idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now, as was alluded to, our Thursday regulations meeting has been changed to being a meeting for the Plan of Conservation and Development. Okay, and so we're going to have that first meeting will be this Thursday, this coming Thursday. I'm sort of moving on to the next item, and if nobody minds, and that is we need to have at least a group of us that are going to be consistently at those meetings to be able to be the sort of a working subcommittee of this commission to provide direction for small items, you know, things like the colors on the branding and that.
I'll do it.
Big items need to come back to the commission. And
I'd
so,
like to be a part of that committee, Mike.
okay, thank you. Well,
If this is the same people, Mike, I'm sorry, same people that were on the other committee, you want them there, you know, when we picked?
well, what we were hoping is I don't want everybody to feel like they have to be there, but everybody's always welcome.
But I'm
Okay.
asking, the people that picked this group, do you want those people at least?
Oh, it doesn't have to be the people who pick this group. Okay, but what I would like is for it to be a group of 4 or 5 people. I'd like it to be you know, represent all of us. So I don't
Yes.
want it to be all one group, you know, one party or the other. I want it to, you know, so I'm glad Bo's put his name forward. I think I saw Dylan raise his hand already.
I want to be involved. Are you gonna do it by Zoom?
Yeah, the meetings will be 5:30 on those first Thursdays. So I think the next one, so it's this Thursday, the 7th, December 5th, and January 2nd
We'll
are
do
the
by
ones that
Zoom
are
for
coming up.
November, this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm in
Yes.
Florida for a month.
Yeah. So, what I would like, you know, it looks like we've got
Yeah,
5 volunteers because I saw Ellen raise her hand. I
yeah,
would
I
like
was
to
part of the
do it,
last group, and I have some of the battle scars, and I'd like to see it. I know what I'd like to see done differently.
Yeah, the last one I was not happy with, and so
The one
I mean,
before it was worse, but anyway.
Yeah. So
Let's hope we're going in the right direction.
I've seen these done poorly, and we tried to do it on the cheap last time, which is what I'm showing my bias, I know, but we tried to do it on the cheap last time, and to be honest, it was not a workable document in my view. So I don't want something like that. I want something that we can actually use to move the town forward and be a strong planning document. But getting back to the committee, so what I saw, and if there's no objection, I would like it to be these 5 people. We got Eddie, Bo, Dylan, Ellen, and I would be the 5 members, unless there's an objection to that. Okay. As I said, everybody is welcome to come to these meetings. They aren't closed meetings. Okay, but I do want, to have a group of us that are going to be, responsible and able to be there for the event. So one of the things that means is making sure that we, set ourselves, set time aside when the meetings are and make sure that we're there, okay? Any, is there any, concern about that? About the members that I just mentioned?
No.
No.
Okay. So, the next thing we have to do is figure out our schedule of meetings. And, what we have been doing, and what I'm worried about is making sure that we have enough meetings to get you guys kicked off quickly. So we'll have a meeting this Thursday. What type of schedule are you thinking about needing to, so that we, particularly early on, should we plan on meeting, say, twice in November, so that you're moving faster? If you wanted to hit the Christmas fair, for example, with something, we need to have something in place for branding, even if it's just have a poster up.
Right. I think the early December meeting will give us enough time to do that. But I think if I hear your point, if there's a need to sort of have an extra meeting in November, I think, Victoria and I can accommodate that. And then if we move to monthly, that would be easier for Mike and for Pat, his associate, who are also going to be working on this. But overall, over the course of the 12 months, monthly should be our standard. I think we shouldn't go less than that. But I think we can react to needs as they come up. Abby, what do you think? Does that make sense?
I agree. I mean, I think so. So realistically, the 7th is in 2 days, or 3 days. The only other available time in November for that Thursday timeframe would be the 21st. And so that's something that we can sort of work through if we need to maybe have folks just hold it on their calendar in case we leave the 7th with more work to be done than we anticipated. And then don't only hold it if we need it. And then the 5th of December would be the next one. And then January 2nd would be the one after that. And I think we can discuss more about setting the schedule, as we go, and just, if the first Thursdays work, generally speaking, Thursdays I think are easier because we can accommodate, we just don't have other night meetings, that interfere. So it's a little bit easier for folks to participate.
That's fine. I like the idea of holding the 21st though, because, as I said, I saw on your thing, the Christmas fairs and that, and those come early in December. So if we don't make decisions on something, for, what that first poster is going to look like, in November, we're not going to have time to get it done. Okay.
Understood.
I'm outreach. I'm just so excited about that. Okay, so we will tentatively plan on the first Thursday of every month as our monthly check-in and meeting time. And then keep it at 5:30 still, like the planning, or do you want to have it later? I'm asking all of you.
I mean, a little later might be a little bit more
Yeah.
convenient.
Yeah, later
Yeah.
would be a little better, maybe 6.
Yeah,
6:30.
I was going to say 6 would be better for me. So 5:30, I'm struggling to make sure I'm home on time.
Yeah, same here. 6 o'clock sounds great.
Okay, so I think we have it on the schedule already for 5:30 this week, right?
It was posted for 5:30 this week, just to kind of keep
So
it
we
within
have to
town
say
hall hours. But yeah,
5:30, but
yep.
but after this, we can move it to 6.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Any further discussion on this before I move on to the next thing?
No.
No.
Okay, I would like to thank David, Victoria, and Mike for being here. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you.
Likewise, thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Hey, I would just like to add, Victoria, the signs, the labels with the anchor, pretty classy.
I agree.
Good. I'm
Very
I'm
nice.
glad I'm glad one hit right off the bat. That makes me happy. So
I
Yes.
I like that too.
Okay. Okay,
you.
we'll move on. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the committee reports. And I don't believe we have any for this month. So that makes it really easy. Correspondence and bills. Oh, wait, before I move on, I realized I screwed up something. We have a new member here. I mean, of course, we know Bo is now a full member, but Robert, you're our new alternate, and I did not recognize you, and I apologize. How do you like to be referred to? So when I'm saying your name, Robert?
Well, everybody calls me Bob, but you don't need to apologize for anything at all.
Okay, so I'll go probably back and forth between Robert and Bob, but we'll
That
work on
works.
that. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now, item 7, correspondence and bills. Did we have any correspondence and bills?
We don't know.
That's good. So item 8 is the one that's really critical, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll
So
second
moved.
it. I'll second it.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion?
No, everybody have a
Favor?
wonderful night.
I
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
You passed.
you.
We're adjourned at 8:11.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night,
Good night.
everybody.
Bye.